Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. The power of his spell divine arts was incomparably powerful to even tear apart the darkness, revealing the strange faces within it. For spell divine arts to reach such a level even without a corporeal body, his battle power far surpassed that of little Roui. Yet none of his divine arts could touch Shingan. That man's speed was simply too fast. He was like flickering light and passing shadows, his speed equal to that of cripple. Facing such speed, even Shaman God Kuei's divine arts couldn't catch up. Cripple's speed was number one in the world. If he tried to escape with all he had, no one could catch up to him. He had only failed twice in his life. The first time was when he was discovered by Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor when stealing Emperor's Disc. His leg had been cut off even before he could erupt with his speed. The second time was when he met Shingan. Even though Cripple's speed was unbelievably fast, his cultivation wasn't as dense as that of Shingan. He was chased for days until he finally exhausted his cultivation, and his both legs were cut off. With such a speed, it was literally impossible for Shaman God Kuei to hit him. Boom! In midair, Shaman God Kuei received Shingan's first strike, and his body trembled. His spirit embryo was almost smacked out of his primordial spirit, and he couldn't help revealing a flustered expression. A huge bang followed after as he suffered the second strike. Trails of true fire spewed out from his eyes, nose, mouth, and ears. The degree of separation between his spirit embryo and his soul became even larger. Bang, bang, bang. Concentrated strikes rang out in midair, and the spirit embryo in Shaman God Kuei's primordial spirit swayed in all directions. Illusions were formed, and the faces were distorted and flustered. Shaman God Kuei actually had no power to retaliate. Imperial Preceptor, that sicko, might not even be a match for the current Shingan. Qin Mu was astonished as he looked at Shingan's chest that was not far away. Shingan had placed it on the ground, no longer carrying it with himself. Beside the chest, Pan Gongso lay with his head shrunk back in while clutching the leg to his chest. He's a goner. My master is going to be finished. He isn't a match for Shingan, this sicko. I plan to fish up some benefits, but from the looks of it, I won't be able to gain anything at all. He took out his Daotai sack and stuffed the leg inside. Shingan is so smart and cunning, he will definitely force me to attach this leg. If it was poisoned by Cult Master Qin, I'll definitely die. But even if the leg isn't poisoned, Shingan will definitely cut it off and not leave it for me. In that case, why don't I take the chance to slip away? However, darkness is outside so I can't leave. While thinking that, he suddenly saw Qin Mu holding a bead the size of a fist. He seemed to be chanting and executing some kind of spell. However, Shingan was busy beating Shaman God Kuei so he couldn't hear what the brat was saying. Black tortoise bead. Pan Gongso stared with his eyes wide open. He recognized the bead in Qin Mu's hand. It was black tortoise bead, one of the 4 great spirit treasures of True Heaven Palace. However, even in his previous lifetimes when he was Grandmaster, he had only seen the bead and never had the chance to personally touch it. This scoundrel is truly a lucky bastard. He actually managed to steal black tortoise bead from True Heaven Palace during the chaos. The gesture of Qin Mu's left hand changed unpredictably. Mirages flashed across the sky above and finally transformed into a sword technique which gently tapped on black tortoise bead. A move of 10,000 spirit nature technique. Pan Gongso's heart jumped slightly. Suddenly, the chest beside him shook, and he felt his hair stand on ends. The bottom of the chest shifted twice, and suddenly a leg popped out from beneath it. Pan Gongso almost cried out when a few more legs grew from the bottom of the chest, and it shook itself. The chest then actually stood up. Before Pan Gongso could return to his senses, Qin Mu jumped onto the chest which began running down the mountain. Midway there, the dragon Chalin shrunk himself as much as he could. When the chest went past him, he leaped up onto it and sat down. Pan Gongso was stunned. When he looked at Xu Shenghua, he saw him holding Jin Yang's hand while waving to Qin Mu who was on the chest. It was obvious that he also knew. Cunning. This guy even dared to steal Shingan's chest. Pan Gongso was going to call Shingan, but he suddenly changed his mind and quickly ran down the mountain on his hands. The speed of that chest was extremely fast, but just as it was about to rush into the darkness, Pan Gongso leaped and grabbed onto its bottom edge. He was brought into the darkness by the sprinting chest as well. The chest was filled with divine body parts, so the surrounding darkness was forced back, and the four legs ran quickly through the darkness. So it's Grandmaster. Qin Mu turned back to look and saw Pan Gongso dangling under the chest. He grinned and pulled out his sword. Pan Gongso took out the poisoned leg to defend, and the two clanked from the strike. Cult Master Qin, hold it! Pan Gongso immediately shouted out. If you attack again, I'm going to scream. I'll see how you escape. Qin Mu put away his sword, full of smiles. What is Grandmaster talking about? We are old friends now, so how could I harm you? Grandmaster, you're about to eat dirt under the chest, so why don't I pull you up? He secretly gave Dragon Chileen a kick, and he understood what he meant. The Dragon Chileen then opened his mouth to gather true fire, preparing to blow Pan Gongso into the darkness after Qin Mu pulled him up. The darkness would then get rid of him for them. Pan Gongso shrunk back and made himself comfortable under the chest. I appreciate Cult Master's concern. I like eating dirt, so I'm fine staying here. You don't have to pay attention to me. At that moment, Shingan's furious voice rang out in the sky above Little Mount Meru. Great Divine Physician Qin, I want to see if your heart is truly black. Definitely black, Pan Gongso grumbled softly under the chest. Shingan's voice came from the top of Mount Meru in one instant, but from much lower in the next. He was going to chase after them. He didn't care about all the other stuff like killing his enemies or not, but his own chest was a different matter. The anger in his voice couldn't be suppressed as he laughed. How dare you? Beneath the chest, Pan Gongso muttered under his breath, the brat's guts are the biggest. You actually dare to collude with the Qin to steal my chest? Grandmaster, how dare you? Shingan's voice sometimes came from the left and sometimes right. It was obvious that he couldn't find Qin Mu and the chest's location under the invasion of the dark, so he had to run here and there. Even so, with his speed, searching a radius of 1,000 miles was no problem for him. Finding Qin Mu and the big chest was only a matter of time. Do you think I won't kill you? You are too childish. When Shingan started to speak, his voice came from 100 miles west, but when he finished his sentence, his voice was coming from 100 miles south. Pan Gongso's face turned green and he ground his teeth. How is it my fault? I didn't work with him to steal your chest. I just took the chance to run away. On the chest, Qin Mu was astonished. Shingan managed to get rid of Shaman God Kuei so quickly? Such abilities are truly terrifying. Below the chest, Pan Gongso grunted and muttered to himself, my master really has lived these years for naught. However, Shingan won't be able to refine his primordial spirit that easily to add to his collection. Cult Master Qin, I have a great idea. It can get rid of my master and Shingan at the same time. Qin Mu spoke from atop the chest. I know what you mean. You plan to go to Yang Mountain in the south of Great Ruins to unseal Shaman God Kuei's corporeal body. Shingan is yet to refine the primordial spirit, and I reckon he separated his spirit embryo and soul to suppress them separately. Shaman God Kuei is a god after all, so when he regains his corporeal body, he just might be able to break free from Shingan's suppression. The complete Shaman God Kuei will not be weaker than Shingan, but stronger. Is what I said right? Pan Gongso nodded repeatedly before realizing that Qin Mu couldn't see him. Cult Master Qin is truly my greatest enemy, he praised. Cult Master, with an enemy like you, I will have nightmares when I sleep. Cult Master, I think he's scolding you, the Dragon Chileen said. That's a generous praise. However, if Shingan might not be able to fight against a complete Shaman God Kuei, the danger to everyone else would be immense, and that will be extremely terrifying. But if... He couldn't help worrying. If Shingan added Shaman God Kuei's primordial spirit to his collection, that would be a great danger as well. If Shingan could refine the primordial spirit of Shaman God Kuei, wouldn't he be able to kill whoever he wanted? Of course, Shingan had his own principles. He wouldn't lay his hands on people that didn't catch his eyes, like people who didn't have an area in which they reached the realm of God. With his hobby, all of the strong practitioners that reached God realm would probably be worshipped to death by him so he could peacefully cut off their divine limbs. This would definitely be a catastrophe, and the impact on the paths, skills, and divine arts would be beyond measure. If these two guys could die together, that would be good. Qin Mu sighed and approved Pan Gongso's idea. He urged the chest to hurry to the south. You guys can't escape. Shingan's voice was sometimes far and sometimes close. The darkness of great ruins at night was so dark that even with his remarkable abilities he couldn't find any traces left behind by the group. Not much later, Qin Mu saw the shadow of a heavenly moat in front of the chest. A crashing of water came from the darkness, and from the noise, he guessed that there was more than one waterfall. They were before an extremely dangerous cliff. Hey, this is that broken cliff at the source of surging river. Qin Mu had the chest come to the edge of the cliff so they could look down. From there, he saw bright light coming from the wall of the cliff. He didn't know what was glowing. His heart stirred slightly. The last time he had come there, he had brought Xiong Xiu and her daughter. At that time, he had seen the heavenly moat splitting the west and east of great ruins into two halves. The height of the cliff had reached thousands of yards. It was a cliff formed by a terrifying earthquake which tore the whole of great ruins apart, forming a huge fracture that stretched from the north to the south. The source of surging river were the waterfalls of the broken cliff. The waterfalls gathered together to form the majestic river that flowed for tens of thousands of miles, reaching even eternal peace where it was the river with the fastest current. On top of that, Qin Mu had also encountered a strange incident. When he and Xiong Xiu encountered fog on the river, they saw a desert and numerous gods forging the palaces of deities. They were the gods of High Emperor era who had received an order from High Emperor to transform the desert into plains. After that, they saw the gods of High Emperor era cutting a canal for surging river. However, what was most weird was that when they saw High Emperor era being buried, the gods of another era walked over from the fog. They were founding emperor and his ministers encountering the bizarre fog when they were surveying the area, sighing at the demise of an era. Their experience had become strangeness that Qin Mu encountered. The echoes of two histories overlapped at the source of surging river and formed an inconceivable sight. At that time, Qin Mu had deduced that there might be entrances to other worlds in that area and even saw the time and space of 5 worlds overlapping. I wonder what strange things happen after night descends on surging river. He was uneasy yet full of anticipation. He had Shingan's chest walk down the cliff, and Pan Gongso, who was under the chest, hurriedly grabbed on one of the chest's legs so that he wouldn't fall off. In the meantime, on the golden peak of Little Thunderclap Monastery's Little Mount Meru, little Roui was sitting in a lotus position while all the monks surrounded him with sorrow on their faces. The devil ape knelt with his eyes wide open. Suddenly, tears started rolling down his cheeks and crashed onto the ground. I rebelled and came out of Great Thunderclap Monastery because my master was unfair, choosing my senior brother to succeed as Roui and not me. Since all lives are equal, why only humans can be Roui and not demons? Since Dharma is equal, why can Roui only be men and not women? Rays of light shone on little Roui's face as he smiled. My cultivation was no inferior to that of my senior brother and I didn't really fancy the Dharma of the human race, so I was indignant. I wanted to build a sacred ground for the demon race. I fought my way out of Great Thunderclap Monastery to build Little Thunderclap Monastery. Great Thunderclap, Little Thunderclap, they are both thunderclaps. Even though they elaborated on Dharma differently, they are both Dharma. Shaman God Kue worshipped my soul to death, and I don't have Shingan's abilities, so now my soul is about to scatter. Zhong Kong, fetch Kakara over. The devil ape knelt down with the Kakara staff held up with both hands. My senior brother imparted Roui's Mahayana Sutra to you because of Kakara, and because of him, I've taken you in as my disciple. Great Thunderclap Monastery, Little Thunderclap Monastery, because of you, they are going to be related once again. Little Roui raised his hand, and the Kakara staff floated into the air. You are the junior brother of Great Thunderclap Monastery's Roui Ma. After I die, Bring all the monks on the mountain to Great Thunderclap Monastery. Roui Ma will take all of you in. He took out a kasaya and a scripture. After placing the scripture on top of the kasaya, he gave them to the devil ape. The kakara staff then landed down and pressed on the scripture. Tell Roui Ma this, Dharma says all lives are equal, so why are demon sculptures in the temples always the mounts of Buddha and Bodhisattvas? Isn't our demon race equal? Little Roui souls and spirits started to break apart and drift away. Then ask him, if the demon race is equal, why is Dharma only written by humans? Can't demons write Dharma too? After that, ask him again, saving humans is an achievement and virtue, so shouldn't saving demons be an achievement and virtue too? Ask him, if eating humans is taking the life of a living creature, is eating demon taking the life of a living creature too? Plants, trees, they can all become demons, so is eating them taking the life of a living creature as well? If he can't answer those questions, hand him this scripture written by me, this demon Roui. He will then take all of you in. Little Roui put his palms together and said with a smile on his face, after I pass away, bring this mortal flesh of mine to Great Thunderclap Monastery. Ask Roui Ma if I can enter 10,000 Buddha's pagoda as well. When he finished saying that, his soul scattered. Demon, master. The devil ape prostrated on the ground, and the monks all started reciting the Great Compassion Mantra in unison. Little Roui founded Little Thunderclap Monastery with his own strength and made it into the only sacred ground in Great Ruins. It's also the only sacred ground of the demon race, Xu Shenghua said in a low voice. There was no demon race in the Dharma, yet he let the demon race have their own Dharma. How is his frame of mind not that of Roui? Yangzi, I would like to go take a look at the Buddha of the humans and the Buddha of the demons. I'll follow you to Great Thunderclap Monastery. Since Big Fella will be bringing all these demon monks through Great Ruins, their journey will probably be full of danger. We can also look after them, Jing Yang said. There are numerous experts in Little Thunderclap Monastery, so it won't be too dangerous for them to cross Great Ruins. The one in danger is probably Cult Master Qin. He stole Shingan's chest and even brought Grandmaster with him. This Cult Master Qin. Veins started popping out on his forehead while Jing Yang only smiled. You are very envious of him? Envious that he's living an interesting life? Xu Shenghua nodded. However, I'm not like him. Even though I envy him, I don't wish to go through his kind of life. I hope he can make it through this. A huge chest was giving off a faint glow while many little things were glowing on the side of the cliff too. Darkness shrouded everything, but at that place, there was actually still light, and this made Qin Mu click his tongue in wonder. The chest stopped on its way down the cliff when it came to a spot with light. Qin Mu examined it in detail, and he couldn't help revealing the astonishment that appeared on his face. The ball of light wasn't given by any creatures or treasure. What was shining from the crack in the cliff was actually sunlight. Qin Mu leaned against the crack and tried to look inside. He saw green plains, a clear sky, and a blazing sun hanging in the sky. Pan Gongso also took a look at another crack. He was also incredibly astonished. When the dragon Chelin saw the situation, he also tried to take a look as well. He then said in bewilderment, "There's another world hidden in the broken cliff. It's not a world that's hidden, but this crack in the broken cliff that's connected to another world." Qin Mu tried different poses, but he couldn't see more. I knew this place was bizarre since there are 5 worlds overlapping. Suddenly, 2 incomparably thick beams of light swept down from the top of the cliff, humming as they swept past them. They didn't notice them who were on the wall of the cliff. Shingan's eyes. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief when the 2 beams of light suddenly separated roughly 100 miles away. The beams of light shone onto the cliff as they slowly searched bit by bit. Qin Mu was stunned. Shingan dug his eyes out and now they are flying in the sky in search of our location. His scalp started crawling, and he shivered when he thought about such a thing. Cult Master Qin, there's a big crack over here. Pan Gongso said. Qin Mu hurriedly moved the chest to where he had pointed, and they all went inside the large crack. The crack was 3 yards wide, and the chest carried Qin Mu and the rest inside it. 2 steps in, they got stuck, and Qin Mu hurriedly pushed the dragon Chilean's tummy inward. However, the chest still couldn't move. Pan Gongso, who was under the chest, was also groaning from the squeeze. "Quiet!" Qin Mu shouted out in a low voice and made the chest go back a bit. One of Shingan's divine arts came close at that moment, pillar-like divine light sweeping past the crack. Qin Mu immediately had the big chest hide behind a huge rock that was jutting out. The speed of divine eyes was extremely fast, and their light flashed by in no time. Luckily Shingan's eyes aren't Grandpa Blind's eyes, otherwise, this huge rock couldn't have hidden us. He let out a sigh of relief and opened up the chest. He grabbed the dragon Chilean by his neck and stuffed this fatty inside. "Cult Master," the dragon Chilean shivered in the chest. "There are all sorts of body parts in here, even heads. There are also hearts. And so many hands and fingers." Qin Mu closed the chest and sent it back into the crack. Without the fatty dragon Chilean, it went much smoother. The chest continued to head deeper in while the light in front of them grew stronger and stronger. Qin Mu leaned against the chest to look forward. At the end of the crack, he actually didn't see green plains or blue sky. Instead, it was a golden-yellow desert. It was a completely different sight from before. Could the world in this crack be different from the world in that crack earlier? Just as he thought that, divine light suddenly shone behind them, shocking Qin Mu. There was no place to hide this time, so he could only rush the chest to crawl forward. Luckily, they were not far from the world in the crack, and the chest quickly crawled through, tumbling down into the golden desert. After 2 tumbles, the chest stood up once again. Qin Mu looked back and saw the beam of divine light shoot through the crack before disappearing. He didn't know if it had seen them or not. His heart shook, and he jumped down to look at the bottom of the chest in a hurry. Pan Gongso's figure had vanished. "That guy truly slips away fast." Qin Mu burst out laughing. Pan Gongso had to have taken the chance to escape when they fell into the golden-yellow desert. It was to save himself from being assassinated by Qin Mu in cold blood. They had been in the darkness of great ruins just then with Shingan chasing after them, so they'd had to work together. But once there was no darkness in the surroundings, Pan Gongso naturally made his escape. He had no legs and was no match for Qin Mu. If he had escaped just a little slower, he might not have had the chance to run away. "Grandmaster is truly crafty," Qin Mu praised. He opened the chest, and the dragon Chilean hurriedly jumped out with a horrified expression. He wasn't willing to get close to the chest anymore. Qin Mu looked into the chest, and it was still the same as before. Taoqia's bones formed its structure and its skin was wrapped around it. Inside, there were many cabinets like before, but the number of body parts was much lower. He also saw the place where the chest had been sliced apart and sewn back together. It was Butcher's 2 knives which had done the damage. After Shingan had escaped from Butcher's knives, he should have mended the chest. "If I could summon the spirit in these divine hands, legs, spirits, and heads and awaken these body parts, Shingan would not be impossible to deal with." Qin Mu's gaze flickered, and he closed the chest before starting to sprint through the golden-yellow desert. The chest ran after him as if it was flying, following steadily behind him. The dragon Chilean also ran quickly while sneaking glances at the chest from time to time with fear in his eyes. After a moment, the dragon Chilean managed to overcome his fear and jumped onto the chest to squat so the chest would be doing the running. Fatty Dragon has already reached a new realm of laziness. Qin Mu thought as he turned back to look at the fatty. The desert in the distance connected to the sky, so Qin Mu with the chest kept on running ahead. Suddenly though, he stopped in front of a huge skeleton lying on a sand dune. Half of it was buried under the sand. Qin Mu walked forward and instantly felt a god's aura. He hurriedly stopped, and the chest behind him also stopped. The dragon Chilean had fallen asleep, but was instantly jolted awake. He raised his head to look around and cried out, "Shingan has caught up." "No." Qin Mu examined the god skeleton that was buried under the yellow sand. The ribs were extremely large, bulging upwards. Under them was a thoracic cavity in which dozens of people could probably stand. He carefully went forward, and the chest tiptoed after him. Qin Mu stretched out his palm, but felt that something wasn't right. He took out Pan Gong So's huge cauldron and slowly went closer to the god's skeleton. Suddenly, he heard a clunk, and he gave a grunt. The webbing between his thumb and forefinger exploded, and his palm became all blooded. One leg of the huge cauldron that had once belonged to Pan Gong So was also sliced off. The huge cauldron had been refined by Pan Gong So in his previous life when he was a strong practitioner close to God level. His huge cauldron was definitely on the level of a cult legacy treasure. Qin Mu couldn't damage it even when he used his sword pellet. This was enough proof to show just how strong was the cauldron. Yet in front of the god skeleton, it was like clay. Its leg had been sliced off just like that. Qin Mu endured the pain and sealed the wound. He picked up the cauldron's foot from the ground and saw that the broken surface was as flat as though an invisible sharp knife had sliced through it. When touching the broken surface, he could feel a scorching heat. This is the Yang Qi of Yin-Yang 2 Qi. They had been refined by the owner of this corpse into divine vitality to protect his body. Qin Mu put away the huge cauldron and the broken leg while the dragon Qilin stared forward carefully. He asked with curiosity, "Cult Master, what damaged the pot?" "The divine treasures of this god." Qin Mu grabbed a handful of yellow sand and gently blew it forward. Once the particles got claws, something that couldn't normally be seen with the naked eye happened. Inside the body of the huge god skeleton which had collapsed in the sand, there were 7 complete divine treasures. They were originally invisible to the naked eye, but once the sand came close, divine lights of all colors were instantly shown, lighting up the divine treasures. The god's corpse was large, but the divine treasures were not. The spirit embryo divine treasure at the heart of the god skeleton's brows was only the size of a square inch. The 5 elements divine treasure was only slightly bigger. The 6 directions divine treasure was located at the dantian while the 7 stars divine treasure was located between the head, heart and lungs. Celestial being divine treasure was on the backbone, and life and death divine treasure were below the waist. As for divine bridge divine treasure, it would fly out from the spirit embryo divine treasure to transform into a flying bridge stretching out of the head. These divine treasure weren't huge, but it was strange how if one looked closer, there seemed to be the space of millions of miles there. It was extremely vast. Qin Mu could even see a withered sun, moon, and stars, as well as broken Milky Way and constellations. In the center of spirit embryo divine treasure, there was the spirit embryo of the god. It should have been part of the primordial spirit, but the soul of the skeleton had long departed. However, the spirit embryo hadn't yet withered. He died from injuries to the primordial spirit. Formation markings swirled in Qin Mu's eyes as he focused his gaze on the spirit embryo divine treasure. The god's spirit embryo had been stabbed through the chest. The sword even left a phantom behind, which showed just how terrifying the strike had been. The broken sun and moon orbited around the spirit embryo, and bright rays of light shone down from them. They were the Yin-Yang 2 Qi. The thing that had severed one of the huge cauldron's legs was one of the Qi of pure Yang. After he died, his blood and flesh wasted away, but he still managed to preserve his complete divine treasures. The spirit embryo is still here, and the remnants of his divine vitality are still so powerful, cutting apart a cult legacy treasure so easily. Qin Mu muttered to himself irresolutely. An ordinary god couldn't have such abilities after he died. He had once taken a look at the corpse of Xu Shenghua's master, Jade Sovereign, who had been blasted from the sky by sunshot divine treasure he had forged and died miserably. Even though Jade Sovereign's corpse still carried a dense god's aura, it was no match for the god skeleton. On top of that, the divine treasures of Jade Sovereign had crumbled after he died. This was a true god, a real god. Qin Mu's expression was solemn as he flipped through his Daotai sack and took out black tortoise bead. He muttered, "Why would a true god die here?" He took out black tortoise bead and borrowed its power to execute a spell to awaken the spirit of the god skeleton. Bones rattled. The corpse suddenly twitched and the dragon Qilin jumped in shock. His scales rose, and even his tail trembled. Qin Mu executed 10,000 spirit nature technique which was best for women to cultivate. His thoughts were too complicated, and he couldn't cultivate it to the extreme. However, he could still barely execute it with black tortoise bead. A huge white skeleton hand slowly rose up from the sand, and the skeleton gradually sat up. Its skull drooped down, it seeming to be observing Qin Mu and the dragon Qilin. Yellow sand flowed down in a waterfall from its eye sockets and mouth. Fight! The skeleton stood up and grabbed a tattered flag from the sand dune. He waved it with his jaw opening and closing. The remaining magic power in his divine treasures shook the air, so even though he didn't have flesh and blood, he could still speak in a world-shaking voice. Accepting the imperial edict. Behind is our homeland, so we have no way to retreat anymore. Fight! We can only fight! Qin Mu's mouth fell open, and he scratched his head. The spirit he summoned should have been a new spirit, but from the looks of it, a part of the skeleton's consciousness seemed to have lain dormant within it and had been awakened by 10,000 spirit nature technique. The battle has already ended years ago, Senior. Qin Mu shouted out. Where's your hometown? Why have you died here? On whose order were you fighting for? Who is your enemy? The skeleton lowered his head to look at him, and his voice shook. As subordinates of High Emperor, High Official of Fomalhaut, we have received the order to block this place. Junior, where are you from? This is a battlefield, quickly fall back. Where are my brothers? The god skeleton swung the huge flag and jumped up, rushing up to the high sand dune. He then froze, just standing there. Founding Emperor era? Isn't that something from tens of thousands of years ago? Qin Mu was flabbergasted. He hurriedly rushed after with the chest. When he came to the top of the sand dune, he couldn't help being stunned. Numerous skeletons lined the desert before them. They were strewn across the golden yellow sand. Some huge skeletons couldn't be completely covered and parts of them stuck out from below. Divine weapons were lying all across the desert, along with tattered battle chariots. There were also rushed motley battleships and metal discs that were 300 yards tall. Qin Mu was stunned. He was before what was once the battlefield of gods and devils. Thousands of them had died, but not one had been buried. What year is this? Beside him, the god lowered his head and asked, Where's High Emperor? Why are my brothers' corpses left to err in the wild? Why weren't these warriors given the due respect after they died? Senior, High Emperor era has long ended and become a legend. Not only High Emperor, even Founding Emperor era ended, Qin Mu said sorrowfully. Did High Emperor also die in battle? The god hung his head down. He seemed to be crying, but no tears fell. He walked toward the battlefield and picked up a white bone. My brother, my comrade in arms, High Emperor era no longer exists, but I can't let you lie here without a place to belong to. Little brother. He turned to look at Qin Mu. Can you awaken these brothers of mine? We will bury ourselves and rest in peace. This video will end here.